awesome.
Yeah,
Well,
on one hand, I'm at the office today, so I had to wear like reasonably decent clothes, but
what, you
you
can't just
know,
go in like your pajamas?
yeah, at the same time, I'm kind of lucky I can wear, this at the office.
That's
So,
awesome. That's awesome. Well, welcome to the Bud
yeah.
Lab. Welcome to our little cannabis family here, hidden on Twitch TV. We are a 24/7 chat community. We kind of learn from each other. We learn from getting people on, like industry people here in the community, talking about what they do best. And we just, yeah, like I said, learn from each other. If someone's got a really good grow, we might all try and follow in their footsteps, or we might try and learn reasons why here and that. But every Thursday, what I've been doing is trying to get someone in the industry here on the stream to talk about what they're doing in the industry. Maybe people in the chat might be interested in either doing something like that in their life, or starting something like that, or just some questions that they always could never find answers to, right?
Yeah, cool.
That's kind of why I started these things, and it was nice that John was able to meet us or link us together here.
Yeah, totally. Shout out John Prentice. Appreciate that connection. Great guy.
Pinners, obviously repping the pinner
Pinners, yeah,
shirt.
great shirt too. Yeah, you got it.
Rapping the
You know
shirt.
what? I probably have a Pinner shirt on underneath this, honestly.
Nice, 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 nice. Well, we'll start it off like any interview. Just like give us a little bit about it yourself. Tell the chat who you are, what you do, and pretty
Yeah.
much why are you here on a cannabis channel.
Yeah, you got it. So my name is Christian Poole. From Toronto, Canada. I I work for a company called Molecular Science Corp. We're a testing lab located in kind of the Toronto area, Scarborough specifically, for anybody who knows. Uh, we've been up and running for about 4.5 years now. We got licensed prior to legalization, which was an interesting kind of transition. So it would have been through actually a slightly different licensing system at first, but it was good because we got a good kind of head start on some of the other operations that were going to open labs. So from there we went on. We decided to get uh, licensed in a GMP fashion. So what that is kind of the accreditation required for pharmaceutical labs. So
Okay.
we kind of operate in a space where we work with cannabis companies, but we also work with pharmaceutical companies that are developing cannabinoid-based drugs.
Okay. Interesting. Interesting.
Yeah, and so yeah, I'm about 5 years in now working in the cannabis space. Prior to this, I hadn't worked in any formal fashion in cannabis.
Mhm.
However, we all have our past experiences
Mhm. Yeah.
that may
Totally.
be a little off the record. And so yeah, it was an obvious choice for me to want to work in this industry. I do have sort of a science degree. I am actually more of a kind of a marketing guy by academia, if you will. But cannabis science, the ability to do marketing, sales, all that in one pile was a really
Mhm.
cool option for me. So I was part of the kind of startup team where we got together. We made a lot of decisions around how we were going to build things out. We when I first joined the team, we had a place chosen, but we hadn't built a lab, so it was
Okay.
down to the studs. My first visit to the lab, I was going, oh my goodness, what am I getting into?
Yeah. This is just a warehouse. What's going on here?
Yeah, but the cool thing is I got to see the process from basically from start to finish of how do you plan to build a lab? How do you actually build the lab? And then how do you get that lab operational? And then how do you start bringing in, clients to help,
Clients. Yeah.
build revenue and stuff over time. So,
Enough revenue to
that's
keep you going too, because right at that time it was a lot of it.
sure.
What if either you were going to the Walmart style corporations, which might have already had their own little labs, right, or
Definitely.
that you're trying to get the smaller guys, which might not be where you're wanting to go to. You want to get the bigger
For
guys,
sure.
right?
Definitely. They're the ones who do the most testing. So,
Exactly,
but
exactly.
it's a unique industry, and it's a unique business in what we do, and there's a lot of nuances that go into successfully operating a business like we do, and
Hmm.
to the point of operating costs too. Because we are a GMP lab, that means we have a lot of additional steps we take to ensure reliability, accuracy, quality of our results. So our operating costs do, they are significant. So,
Hmm.
lab testing isn't a cheap thing. And when you're
Exactly.
doing it, properly, we have a team of people who have PhDs and, worked in pharma for 10 plus years, all that kind of stuff. So, you know, to run an operation like we do is a lot of moving parts for sure.
Hmm. Totally, totally. I noticed online it looked like you guys had mobile testing facilities, like in trucks almost, right?
So that was we're no longer doing that, but
Okay.
it makes for a really great story if you
Yeah.
don't mind me sharing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
totally.
So when we first started MSC, like I said, like we barely even had the lab kind of built at the very beginning, right? So while we were working towards becoming an operational facility, we did something kind of unique, which was we built a testing lab in a 53-foot Featherlight trailer. It was a converted NASCAR trailer, so it used to be
Wow.
for transporting race cars,
That's
which was pretty
cool.
wild. But it gave us a really good starting point for a vehicle that could handle something like what we were looking to do. So,
And something
uh,
like that, would you license the vehicle underneath of the Health Canada lab and then wherever it goes, the license kind of follows?
it's a good question, and that was one of the, I guess, hurdles that ultimately kind of led to us making the decision to not continue doing it. Now, it's not that it was the total showstopper, but the fact that we were in process of opening a brick and mortar lab,
Mm-hmm.
that
Mm-hmm.
was where our license was going to be assigned at a fixed address.
Mm-hmm.
It did create a bit of a gray area for the licensing on a vehicle that traveled from location to location.
Yeah, and I could definitely see that because I was always under the impression that the license would have to be based on the address of the building, right? So when you're
Right,
moving locations, it was when I saw the trucks, I was like, wow, that's very interesting. And then when I saw on your website that it didn't seem like you were advertising these trucks anymore, it was
right,
like, okay,
yeah.
you're probably actually in the facility.
Yeah, so we had, some workarounds. So we had a very open conversation with Health Canada about this,
Mm-hmm.
project that we were doing, and we worked out some, legal language in our
Mm-hmm.
paperwork to kind of say that, we would be moving around this and that. One thing we did look for was the ideal partner for, let's call it a mobile lab campaign. The ideal partner was a licensed company that would allow us to, pull up on their property.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
when we were there, we were also kind of bootstrapping on the idea
There.
of being at another licensed facility. So again, it probably wasn't a perfect,
Yeah.
you know, scenario, but we were very open with Health Canada. We worked through a lot of those details, and we just had to stay on top of things as we kind of moved around. Like we couldn't just assume everything was going to always work out and
Yeah.
be fine with everybody. So we just really kind of went overkill on ensuring the communication was in place so that we weren't surprising anybody or that we
Mm-hmm.
weren't offending anybody by being somewhere or whatever. So
Yeah, and that's the last thing. It's not the people, it's not so much the growers and all that or the residents looking at what's going on. It's the other competition who might be like, "Well, why can they go from location to location and we
for
can't?" Right?
sure,
It's not every all the
yeah.
growers are like, "No, this is awesome. I don't have to bring my plants off site. Someone can come right there, test it right there." Like that's awesome, but obviously I can see the loopholes and I guess the walls having to jump over just to get that.
Absolutely. And me being new to this legal industry, and this industry being very new itself, were there times where we were operating that program where I was a little nervous?
Mhm.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
I had moments like, this is all new regulation and we're really kind of walking the line here. Like, am I going to get in trouble at work today?
Yeah,
Or,
yeah, no, I can
but
see that. Okay,
yeah,
so
but
now
it was good learning for
uh,
sure.
coming up to that point, would you do anything differently now? Was there, like you were just saying, there was some nervous points. Would you do anything differently that you could prevent all of that?
Yeah, it's another good question, but I don't think we would have done anything differently.
Yep.
The team that I was kind of a part of in managing that operation was, really qualified and educated. We really knew what we were doing. We had a lot of open communication with Health Canada. I think ultimately the biggest reason we, didn't continue doing it was that it actually made more sense for us to convince people to just ship samples to our lab.
Okay.
It was a more reliable operation in a brick and mortar facility to say, hey, these are true quality results. We can produce a C of A. We can stand by these results. It's from a, physical licensed address, all
Yeah.
that kind of stuff. And it was just the cost of driving a 53-foot trailer around and setting it up, having a very rigorous, shut down setup process.
Totally.
Going around the country, having a truck have to drive it everywhere it went. It required power 24/7
Yeah.
once you got set up, because triple LMS was $600,000 lab instrument on board that you had to really be careful with how we were handling it. So overall, it was a fairly expensive endeavor, and it when you're offering, let's call it $200 potency tests, you got to do a lot of those to kind of justify the cost. So it helped in the sense it was a really great kickoff campaign for us. It helped get our name out there. It helped show that we were innovative. We were thinking about things outside the box a little bit. But ultimately, once our lab got up and running, that was our real focus for success as a business.
Yeah. Totally. No, I like that. I like that. And I guess that's I was looking again at your website, and I noticed that Steep Hill, I think, is the company that has now bought you guys out, and your name is slowly changing over to that way.
Yeah, you got it. So pretty cool. Happened last year was we were actually acquired by a company.
Yeah.
And so we are now part of a public company, which is called Steep Hill. Steep Hill is a very well-known cannabis testing lab brand from the United States.
Okay.
Steep Hill has historically had upwards of 10 different labs operating in different states. And the idea was, last year we got acquired by a company that also acquired Steep Hill, and now we are becoming one public entity called Steep Hill that's going to be, the idea is that it's going to be a public company with labs all across North America and hopefully internationally as well eventually too. So
very cool. That's
so
that's
it's a
the
network of labs, really.
Yeah, that's exactly where I like that, though. I like a network of labs, because that means everyone's going to be roughly on the same quality. There's going to be a standardized testing procedure when they're all following the same thing, right? Like I like that part.
Exactly.
Yeah.
For sure. And like for one example to that point, which is, now that we're part of this kind of family of labs, like you wouldn't believe the meetings where we sit down and we share, the successes, the challenges, when you've got 7 different teams that are all, running the same type of business that can put their heads together once a month and say, hey, we had this issue. Does anybody else have a good way to solve this as a lab? The amount of value and knowledge gets shared really quickly across the group. So it's a really cool thing to see.
Yeah, exactly. And that's kind of like what the Bud Lab is like a group of a whole bunch of people from around the world. Knowledge gets spread really quick, and I think we all increase our knowledge really quick that way too. You can see just with our grows, everyone seems to be getting better on everything.
Oh, for sure.
Every year.
Well, I'm a big advocate for that style of learning. Just get a bunch of people together who are interested in something, and share what's working well for you, and ask what's about how people are dealing with things that are not going so great. So
exactly. Awesome. Well, let's get into some testing then. Got a couple questions here just on your testing here. I noticed on your website that you have something that says you support 2.0 testing now. What is 2.0 testing?
Sure, yeah. So that's like maybe on the fluffier side of language used to describe the types of products that were made legal about a year after the original legalization. So 2.0 products technically, is described usually as, vapes, concentrates, edibles, beverages, that group of products that were kind of introduced about a year after legalization. So, that for us to kind of quickly get across the point that, hey, we support all the testing for these new wave of products as well. It was kind of the most concise way for us to word it. But, there are some people who say, 2.0 is an outdated way of, referring to those products and everything. But kind of like the Indica Sativa thing, which is like people kind of just know what that means quickly. A lot of times, you know, maybe not everybody, but you know, at least when people are talking about testing and stuff, like, you know, so that's what 2.0 is. It's really referring to that kind of second wave
Okay.
of products that were made legal in Canada.
Okay. I was thinking, I did notice that you guys have some psychedelic testing that you guys are coming soon on the website too. So I wasn't sure if 2.0 might have meant the
Sure.
2.0, the next legacy, or that next round of maybe in 5 years we'll see shrooms or something come
Right.
legal, right? So like that 2.0.
Right. No, that totally makes sense. I can see that. And yeah, to that point, which is we do have what's called a dealer's license. We applied and received last year. So that allows our lab to now start, you know, possessing and working with a few different psychedelic compounds.
Oh, cool.
Right now, we're licensed to work with psilocybin, MDMA, and ketamine.
Okay, interesting. So now we're gonna get some more research on that, which I think is where the next research is. Like I think most, like we've got, like I don't think we're nearly close to enough research on cannabis yet, but it's nice to see that
Right.
we're starting to move forward in other directions where there's other quote unquote natural medicines that people are using. Right. It's nice to know that labs are actually looking into those so that we can maybe start pushing safe consumption that way too. Right.
For sure. Yeah, and you know, that's really the name of our company's game. Like we're not so much involved in like research or the clinical side of things.
Yeah.
We're really more on the backbone of quality assurance, quality control, that kind of stuff. So we're ensuring, you know, the dosing is very accurate and consistent over, you know, let's call it, if we're looking at something like pills or tablets or something like that, that, you know, if you divided that pill into 4 portions, that each portion is going to have the same potency,
Mm-hmm.
as well as, you know, if you're making batches over batches, that, you know, each unit does actually have the amount that you're expecting it to have. So, you know, you can't sleep on how difficult that process actually is from like a pharmaceutical perspective,
Yeah,
like
totally.
developing, and you know, like when you think of like you know, black market or illicit market, like edibles, those kinds of things, you know, it really is tricky to formulate and create super consistent products. And you know, we see that we work with companies that are putting all kinds of processes and controls in place and are still struggling to hit perfect, you know, ranges for those dosing. So
Yeah. No, that's good. Not like that's why I like getting labs here on TVL, because I like learning from behind the doors, things that you don't usually see as a consumer. Like people who are just going to a dispensary and buying things, you don't see the process it has to go through to get to the shelf. And it's not just cannabis; it's other products too, like you're saying, and pharmaceuticals and everything. It's not, you're not just buying an Advil just because it was tested at the facility. There's a whole thing, that like a whole line
right,
that it has to go through, right, just to get to the point where
right,
it's
yeah.
on the shelf for us to purchase. It's interesting.
Exactly. Yeah, before they actually do the final production of something like Advil, they are spending a lot of time working through how they actually formulate and manufacture it before
Hmm.
they're even going to say, "Hey, this batch is, you know, good to go to market," kind of thing. And then even that batch will have to go through a rigorous sort of set of analytical testing to kind of ensure that it hits all the different specifications it needs to.
Yeah, totally. Awesome. I've just noticed that your camera keeps kind of freezing up here. Was the door closed midway through?
Uh-oh. I'm not sure. You know, I'm not seeing that on my end here
No,
actually. So,
no. Could
is
be.
it like a refresh it or something? Or
See, it's fine right now. Here, let me just check
okay,
to see.
well,
It's going good though.
it
Everything.
maybe because I have two windows open right now, one with the chat, one with that. So maybe when I'm on the chat window, it's like putting this one in the background or something. But keep this window with the
Okay.
video as my primary. I don't know.
Well, either way, the audio is coming through fine, so it works good.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I'm sorry about that. I don't know
No,
if
that's
that's
fine.
maybe my
No, that's
internet or something, but
it. Could be. It could just be a day on Discord where the videos are a little funky on Discord because the audio is working fine. So that's all.
okay.
The audio is the more important part, anyways.
And I can see that your video is working well, and since you're the star of the show,
Yeah.
that's the most important part.
Well, I got you up here because right now you're the star of the show. I'm just here in the corner listening, learning. Okay.
You got it. Which
Uh,
is funny. I'm just also my eyes are drifting over. I'm reading some of the chat, so if I just start laughing at something, I think it's probably because I'm reading something funny in the chat.
yeah, just ignore the chat. We got some hooligans here today.
Yeah, hey, no, it's all good. It's great. Like it's got
Uh,
me laughing.
all right, all right.
Someone keeps pointing out my teeth. I might have to stop smiling.
Yeah,
I'm a
no.
naturally smiley person, so I don't know if I could do.
That's funny.
Not what I
That's
can, not
funny.
sure what I can do on this. Oh,
It's
that's
like
great. No, it's a really fun way to facilitate a conversation though, with people having the ability to comment on it. So
yeah, that's why I love the live stream aspect of it, being able to have a conversation with people around the world and it be directly a conversation and not having to go through comments or go through uh, things that are might happening 15 minutes after, right? Like it's nice to be able to have a conversation with people around the world as it's happening. That's what's really cool about
yeah,
live
totally. So
streaming.
you would say your audience is from all over the world here?
Yeah, I would say 50% of the viewers are probably US, and then 25,
Okay.
well, probably around 30% are Canadian, and then 20% would be in Europe, somewhere around there.
Awesome.
So, and what's nice about Europe too is that a lot of the guys are consuming Canadian cannabis that way because they're all in the medical market, and a
Sure.
lot of that is all Canadian cannabis grown, right? Yes, we
No
do have a
doubt.
little
And I
bit.
mean, hey,
There's a few Australians, and there's some people from South Africa as well.
cool. Yeah, nice. Well, yeah, there's certainly a lot of things from the medical cannabis perspective that, the world could look at Canada and learn a few things. I think
Yep.
it maybe goes the other way as well. Like, there's certain things we haven't done perfectly, and maybe others could do an improved version of it. But
Yep.
yeah, hey, we didn't have a lot of reference to look at up front. So, you don't want to do something that's not gonna work out well. So you got to play it kind of safe too. So
Totally,
it's
100%. I agree
a
with
lot to
that.
consider.
Um, uh, Speaking of actually right on that line, right? What are some weird Health Canada laws around cannabis testing that you just don't doesn't make sense to someone who's in the industry?
Good question. I got to be careful what I say here because Health Canada is our friends. But no, like there's not a ton of things that are egregious. Like there's not one thing that they've put in place for just the sake of doing it. Now, whether it's effective or not, there's thinking that goes behind all of these decisions, and for the most part, they're trying to do the right thing, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
this is a bit of a new thing on a global scale, and while a lot of the community understands, cannabis is a very safe plant. It's there's not a lot of history of bad things happening, but at the same time, it's also been illegal. It's been like an illicit drug in
Yeah.
most of the world. So when you turn on the faucet, if you will, like you got to kind of slowly turn it off.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
I think that that's been like a bit of a challenge for some people, and you'll find people with different business models, or how they're trying to succeed in the industry is kind of different company to company. And so something that's an issue for one person might be not an issue for everybody else, and that kind of thing. So it's really when you find multiple groups of people talking about the same thing that you may say, hey, maybe this actually does require a little attention and some improvement from a regulatory perspective. And there's been a few things like that. And one of the big ones was the like the inhalation specifications for micro testing.
Okay.
So there was like I think it was last year, was pretty much that the industry kind of got together and argued that some of the micro specifications for testing for inhalation
Mm-hmm.
products
Yeah.
were a little bit too low. And what we were finding was that a lot of the micro guys who didn't have the kind of money to put in like extremely rigorous hygiene systems in their grows
Yeah.
were, struggling to pass the test for those limits. Now,
Okay.
we all know that, the reality is that product is very likely to be, safe still for consumption, but this limit that the government was saying that it had to be was a little bit low for some people to make. So
Okay.
ultimately, there was some kind of changes made, and it allowed, the guys who were growing some of the highest quality cannabis, but were potentially failing that micro spec test on that test. Um, they were being forced to go to like irradiation and all these, steps that were, potentially impacting the quality of their cannabis. So for them to be able to now not have to, do extra steps for remediation and stuff like that is probably a good thing for the industry in
Hmm.
the sense that, some of the highest quality products are now able to kind of pass those micro tests and not be an issue in the eyes of regulators.
Yeah, that's nice. Not having to. I've heard of people having problems in organics, like their full organic no-till setups, and they're having problems with getting licensing or passing because of they use a ton of different microbes and bacteria to grow their
Sure.
plants, and a lot of those
Yep.
might pop up
Good
high.
ones too.
Yeah, exactly. Good ones, and they'll pop up on the testings, and they're like, "Well, this can't pass because it's over that percentage, right?" So they've had some growers that I've heard that are growing in an organic matter where they're just not able to grow the way they want to because they can't pass with the way they want to, even though it's completely
Sure.
healthy
Yeah,
or even better than healthy.
totally.
It's probably the same microbes that's in yogurt or this and that, right? And it's just not able to
Sure.
pass.
Yeah, exactly. And that's the thing is they do like a total aerobic and yeast and mold count. So like it's a very wide range of microbes that can get kind of, detected on that test. And therefore, even if they're being used for a positive impact on the grow and stuff like that, then it can still, trigger some of the tests required by Health Canada. The other argument on that test, which is dried flower very often is smoked, whether it's a
Yeah.
joint, pipe, whatever, bong, and the idea is the fact that this thing is literally going to be burnt
Yeah.
before it actually gets into your body. So the chance that any of those microbes actually get into you and cause harm is pretty low when it comes to
Interesting.
smoking cannabis. So
But see, it's nice that you
yeah,
guys
when
are
there's
looking into
combustion
stuff like that
involved.
too, right? Because that's the safety behind consumption too, right? Which is important as well.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. So,
Over.
yeah, I mean, yeah, to your original question, which is, are there any outrageous rules that Health Canada make us follow? If you talk to the right person, some people are more irked by some of the rules than
Mm,
others, but I'd say overall you know the rules in place are pretty fair, and
yeah.
and I think for the most part they all have good intention for why they're there. And over time, if things are an issue to too many people, that kind of fizzles up to the top, and then you start hearing about it, and then it doesn't happen overnight, but
Hmm.
I think everything's heading in the right direction
Totally. I think
for the
so
most
too.
part, I'd
I
say.
think so too. I think over the last, someone's asking you, over the last 4 years that you guys have been in operation, have you guys noticed a big change in cannabis from 4 years ago to now? Are you noticing that the same percentages of THC? So if there's a bud that was 20% THC 4 years ago, is it still 20% nowadays, but just with way more trichome production on it, just way higher terpene percentages? Like, what's the big difference over the last 4 years you've noticed?
Good question. Now, I think hard to know off the top of my head, like to know if like an individual cultivar that was being
Okay.
produced by an LP, like 4 years ago, if they're still growing the same genetics, and what are their chemical profiles now versus then. Uh, but what I can say is despite the fact that there is a growing voice arguing for the fact that THC percentage is not the most important thing,
Yes.
we're still seeing a lot of that driving a lot of product.
100%.
Now, and
Yeah.
I'm totally of the mindset that like I'm a big advocate for understanding terpenes and educating on terpenes.
Mm-hmm.
I think there's even other classes of compounds that are interesting, thiols, aldehydes, those kinds of things that are, super stinky compounds. You don't even you need very little amount in your product to create a large smell. So I think
Interesting.
that's an interesting pathway for kind of the labs and some of the companies to explore, because I think the conversation on terpenes is evolving, and I think
Yeah.
that's becoming even relevant to everyday consumers, and
100%.
the way these products are being sold in stores, and that, which is a great first step, definitely. Like get off the hyper focus on THC.
Mm-hmm.
Now again, like strong THC products serve a purpose, and I'm not going to say like you shouldn't care about them or you
Yeah.
shouldn't enjoy them,
Totally.
because there's definitely something to them, but something's got to for mixed with like a unique effect. That often comes from I don't want to be cliche and say the entourage effect or whatever, but it's this combination of terpenes, cannabinoids, other compounds, and they're all kind of mixing to create a unique and enjoyable effect, right? So
Exactly, and that's what I
yeah,
say daily too. Is all about the entourage effect here. It's not always about the THC. If you have something that's 30% THC but has 0% terps in it, that might be just some trash flower that might not give you
yeah, it
any
might even
effect that
hurt,
you want. Yeah,
taste like
exactly.
crap, might hurt your throat.
Exactly. And then actually, I had a question here about flavonoids, because you're mentioning different things that we're now starting to test, and I noticed that cannabis facilities are
Sure.
now starting to test on flavonoids and things, because they're noticing that terpenes aren't the only thing that's creating that flavor that we get. It can be the
Yeah.
flavonoids, which can also change different through phenos and this and that, right?
Yeah, so I mean, like, I think it was like last year there was, quite a bit of attention put for a short period of time on like canflavins, like canflavin A, canflavin B. I think there was even some research that started to point to them being, equivalent or even more potent than the like analgesic effects of uh, Advil. Like they're saying,
Oh, cool.
so they're, I think they're even talking about, so my take on that, which is I think there is something of value to look into there. I think
Hmm.
right now the quantity of flavonoids or canflavins that are produced in the average cannabis plant are extremely low. So
Hmm.
to to start talking as if I'm gonna roll up a joint tonight, smoke that, and the canflavins are gonna be relieving all this pain for me. Like there's
Mm.
maybe some more exploration on that.
Okay.
But the idea of it is, hey, identifying a compound that's in this plant and finding ways to either have the plant produce more of it, or extract it and
A
concentrate
hundred
it
percent.
to the point where you do have something that's of significant physiological effect, like that. There's something there for sure. But I
Yes.
think the idea of the everyday consumption of a joint or something, and then the fact that canflavins are playing this like important role in pain relief or something is maybe not fully fleshed out, but
Yeah, totally. And that's kind of like saying how CBD is the healing of all. It's the healing
sure, yeah,
terp, right? Like, or cannabinoid, right? Which isn't.
panacea,
Which isn't, right? They're starting to learn more. We're starting to learn that CBD and CBG can be pretty much processed into anything. That kind of goes into my next question here: is what is your opinion on these Delta 8s that you see in the States? These HHNs, I think that you're seeing now being sold out. Delta
yeah,
11s or Delta 10s or whatever I think they're called.
yeah, the different like THC analogs. So it's an interesting one. Like I've been kind of following the conversation. It's interesting because it's not really happening so much in Canada.
Yeah.
Like it's kind of going on in the States, where it seems like they're using it as a way to kind of skirt around regulations, but to
Yep.
provide consumers with a product that can get them high, I guess,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
Like, so it's interesting. Like we're seeing some states that are saying, you know what, no, we can't allow this. Pull these products off the shelves. You're seeing other ones that are kind of just still allowing it to happen.
Yeah, and they're not in dispensaries because some of the states that sell them, they don't sell them in the dispensaries that are there. They're at gas
Right,
stations. They're at
right.
convenience stores. They're like, whoa, okay, so now you've got a market of legal cannabis already in the medical or rec markets, I think. Maybe not any states with rec markets, but at least you have a medical, safe medical market. And then now you have this, like, the black market or legacy market. And then you have this, like, semi-legal market that's being sold in, like, gas stations that no one knows about, but they're like, well, it gets me high. And you're like, well, are we really wanting... It's all processed. We don't know where it's coming from. Do you guys do any of that testing or really have done testing for that?
Not really, because like again, it's kind of not particularly the legal market so much doing that. So, and again, it's not really a huge focus in Canada. Like, to me, I see it in the States where it was like, hey, CBD is now in the gray area, and you started seeing CBD oils pop up at gas stations and all that, and then okay, whatever, and then it was like, okay, well, CBD doesn't get you high, so is there maybe a different version we can do of this where people will actually feel like they're getting. But I think, like, my ultimate perspective on it, which is like, and maybe this is a personal opinion, but I think the high that you get from Delta 9 or from a combination of full kind of spectrum or broad spectrum is preferred to that Delta 8 stuff.
I think so too.
Right? So I think overall, long term, the solution is, like, in the States, is federal legalization, and these products will probably not be so relevant because, the products that people would prefer are going to be more available to them.
Yeah, totally.
Right?
And I agree with that too.
They seem like they all kind of pop up out of this need to skirt regulation and provide people with something to get high with in a place where it's not legal to purchase something that's going to give you a full spectrum cannabis experience.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. I've always kind of said, like, a lot of people who mention that they are consuming Delta 8 and these different HHNs or whatever they're called in the chat, they're always like, no, I do get a buzz off it. I really do. I get high off it, this and that. But a lot of those things I look at, they're like, yeah, they're high in terps and they're high in this Delta 8. And you're thinking, well, it's probably all infused terps, which it 99% sure it is. It's infused terps into it. And it's just all processed CBG or CBD into this Delta 8. And I'm always just like, well, and then some people are always saying, well, comparing it up to a Delta 9 cartridge, you can't really see the difference between a Delta 8 and a Delta 9. Because I think it's just with cartridges, you're just consuming more or less for the flavor, which is all the terps. So I think they hide the effect behind the terps. And then if you just get a little bit of an effect off it, they're like, well, I'm getting an effect.
Yeah.
But, like, I don't know. I've never tried Delta 8, but everyone that I've talked to that's compared it to Delta 9 always says that it gives them a very similar feeling. And I'm like, well, I would love to try it. For
sure. And I would definitely not shoot that down and say that person's not, like, telling the truth or something, because I'm in the same boat. I haven't really tried it, but one thing I can say is like in a country like Canada where all of these compounds are legal, you could in theory you could create any product with any focus on any cannabinoid and the extraction capacity, and it has to make sense and all that. But I don't see any Delta 8 products being manufactured here, or even people really thinking too heavily about making them, because to me it just seems like it's a workaround product.
Totally. I agree.
Personal opinion.
I agree. Would you rather a product with higher THC and lower terps, or higher terps and lower THC?
Good question.
That's a hard one, eh? It's a hard one.
Well, so this is what I'll say is I'm not someone who's chasing super high numbers for either or.
Okay.
Right? Like, there's this new wave of products you're seeing now that are all fighting to have, over 5% terpene content. And, like, I don't need 5% terps. I've had products that have 2% terps that taste as good as I need them to taste. So, I'm not necessarily seeking out the highest number on terpenes, or I'm not necessarily seeking out the highest number on THC either. Like, obviously I am somebody who prefers something, with decent THC content, but is that 18? Is that 28? Both of those work for me.
Awesome. Not with the terps too, are you saying with the 2% versus the 5%? That's something I'm seeing right now on COAs a lot, is that the ones that have the 5%, it's always terps that are less desirable. And the ones that are at the 2%, it's always more of a main terp. So it's 2%, but the main terpene is 1.3% of that full 2%. And then on the 5%, the main terp's only 0.8%, but they've got so many different terps in it. So when you have that 5%, you're not actually getting a straight flavor. You're getting a combo of flavors, which might not give you that what you're looking for anymore, right? And then when you're getting that 2% with the more dominant terp, you can get more of a flavor. And I think that's why COAs are important to me, and why I think they should all be public for the consumer to see. Like, I truly think that if dispensary owners only brought in products with public COAs, they would only bring in the best quality products. And then it allows people to go in there and say, oh, this is high on this. I can see exactly the batch, this and that, right? Like, I think they're so important. I'm hoping that more public things are. For sure. Like, there's more of a public website maybe we can go on where, like, the OCS or something has a full, or labs come together and create this public COA that everyone can go on and search big concentrates, big kush, or we can search pinners purple and we can all see them, right? Like, that would be awesome.
Yeah, if you look those up, you might find MSC logos on those COAs, maybe even too.
Yeah, we might see them.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe, not sure.
Well, you guys and High North Labs seem, from the standpoint of me of being outside of the industry, kind of looking in, you guys seem to be two of the more popular ones that are talked about through the industry, from what I've seen.
Definitely, yeah. High North is another big lab in Canada now. You know, they are. What's the right way to say this? Yeah, like they're very well known. They're working with a lot of clients right now. You know, even some of the best producers in Canada. You know, yeah, that's what I'll say there. And we definitely try to stay relevant. You know, we work with, you know, everybody from some of the biggest guys in Canada all the way down to, you know, small guys growing in their basement, just trying to understand a bit more about their product.
Exactly.
So yeah, we don't discriminate on who we work with, really. It's, you know, as long as it's within the rules and we can make it all work. And
totally.
Like to your point earlier, obviously the big guys are the ones who do the most testing.
Yeah.
So, you know,
if you want to run
if you want to run like a lab that's, you know, doing things all the right way, there's costs that go into all that stuff. So,
totally.
You know, having a good roster of clients that are coming back for regular testing is the ideal for sure.
It gets your name out there too. It shows that, because, like I said, with the public aspect of COAs, you've got your logo at the top corner. People are able to see that. They say, oh, it's been by this company, and then that immediately, as me as a consumer, a lot of my paranoia in cannabis came from not knowing where it was grown. And with being able to see these things public, I'm able to see, oh, it was grown by this person, it was tested by this company, it was tested this time, grown this, like, it shows all of that stuff, right? And because I am more of an organic grower, that's one thing I always keep in mind is that some organic products will not, like, it causes you to not pass. Like, some of the products that we spray on our plants daily are just things that the government just doesn't like, the testing facilities don't like, the equipment doesn't like, right? And even though it's all safe. But that's another question I've got here. Should all labs be forced to keep upgrading and keep updating all of their testing equipment to stay relevant with the what we have now? Because what we see is that some of them, from a consumer's eyes, again, some people and growers like to go to certain labs because they might have older equipment that might not be as up to date and as accurate as some of the newer stuff. Should all labs, like, every year almost have to go through like a re-certification on their equipment or this and that?
That's an interesting question. Like, I haven't done too much thinking about that, but that's really getting my wheels turning a little bit. So there's a couple things that come to mind on that, which is lab equipment is extremely expensive.
100%, yeah.
Like, we're not talking like a couple thousand here. So, like, if the idea would be to say, you know, labs have to update and replace equipment annually, labs couldn't stay open.
Yeah, okay.
They couldn't afford to do that. So, I guess second to that, which would be is there are a lot of things in place that ensure that the equipment being used in labs are up to the standard required
Okay.
for
So like weekly
purpose.
calibrations, making sure
You
that
got it.
it's within that like 0 point certain percentage of accuracy and effectiveness, whatever.
Exactly. So now I don't know, I can't speak on behalf of all labs in Canada,
Mm-hmm.
but for us, because we are GMP, we have like very, strict rules in place
Mm-hmm.
and procedures in place in our lab for the maintenance of our equipment and the calibration of our equipment. And the other side for us too, which is we were lucky that when we started as a company, we had the money to go out and buy very high end, very
Mm-hmm.
expensive equipment. And so we were in a position where we started our company in 2018, whereas, another lab that might have been a pharma lab that decided to get into cannabis in 2018, their equipment, it could be 15 years old.
Yeah.
But, because they're not buying new stuff right now to start their company, they're going to be potentially looking to use the equipment that they have already.
Okay, that makes
Uh,
sense, and I guess that stuff is at the bare, like just like I was a tradesman growing up, and I kind of changed over the years, but it was always you had your building code, and that was the bare minimum. You were able to go above and beyond to get better, to do better jobs, or to have better flow in your plumbing, or to have just more efficiently this and that. But there was that bare minimum code that everyone had to follow.
right. So then, and then maybe the final point to that, which is labs are required to validate the methods that they're using for testing. Now,
Okay.
simplest way to explain that is that you have to be able to prove reliably that the method you're using, which is every step in the process to perform that test,
Mm-hmm.
can be done reliably. So you're going to get the same results if you perform that procedure over and over.
On the same bud,
And
right?
and it Right, and
Okay.
and there's another concept called like limits of quantitation, LOQs. You may have seen that language on C of A's at some point, but the idea is in that process you're also proving that your accuracy and reliability of your measurement is good down to a certain very small amount.
Okay. Okay.
So labs are sort of put in a position where they do have to prove and back it up with documentation that they are able to test down to certain limits reliably.
Okay.
Now, having said all of that, um, is a lab that's got great new equipment that's maintained on the regular going to be more reliable on the testing than a lab that's got outdated equipment and maybe has less stringent schedules on
Mm-hmm.
their maintenance and calibration and stuff? Yeah, it's very possible for sure.
So that would also be able to have, some companies might use that to their advantage to be like, okay, I'll get an older lab to do my stuff to try and produce higher numbers, because that's obviously something that we hear around as rumors and stuff, right?
Yeah. Now, yeah, and that's an interesting concept. Like, I'd have to think a little bit more on that, but I don't know if older equipment is necessarily going to produce higher, more desirable results.
Okay, interesting.
Now, a smart chemist who is innovative and who understands the regulations, but also understands how to build the methods for testing, also may be able to get sort of creative and find, ways to do these things that may not be detectable to Health Canada or, may
Mm,
not trigger Health Canada or whatever, but it may, result in slightly higher numbers for potency results or something like that.
okay, interesting. I hear that happening in the extracts as well. People are because blending is something that's happening now, which I'm not against blending. I think blending of terps and blending of different strains can actually be a positive thing. It can actually create more of that full spectrum people are looking for. And when you're doing it with
Mm-hmm.
hash, it can do that too. But what I'm hearing people are doing is they're taking bad hash, bad quality hash, and then
Right.
they're adding a THCA right to it. So something that's is either
Right.
something
Right.
repressed into THCA, and then they're blending it together to increase your THCA numbers with the
Huh.
bad hash and still have very
Mm-hmm.
similar maybe terpene numbers or whatever, right? Which is kind of like a
The hot
blend.
dogs of the hash world.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. So it is kind of like blending things together, but if you're blending it in the right manner where the entourage effect complements each other, it makes sense, right? But if you're blending it to the point where you're taking shitty material and you're just making it higher, that's the same thing as taking moldy material and blasting it through butane, right? Like, do we really want to be promoting that even though it's done daily? Probably not.
Right.
Right?
Exactly. Yeah, and that's a good point, which is like the quality when it comes to cannabis products is like it's not super defined, but there's definitely a massive spectrum and range of the products that exist out there, and there's all kinds of ways to get products to market that kind of skirt the traditional quality side of things in the sense of the quality that the consumer is looking for.
Yeah.
You might be able to prove in the eyes of Health Canada that your product is quality in terms of it passes all the tests and all that kind of stuff, but I'm a pretty firm believer in that the market will decide if something's a good product or not,
and that's what I believe too, is that if you don't market yourself well and you just think, oh, I'm going to grow cannabis, put it on the market, and it's just going to sell. It's not. That's not how the industry seems to be going. It's going to the point where your brand matters, the marketing behind your brand matters, and the quality of the grows going into it really matters. Like, they tried all that, what I always like calling the Walmart style grows, and they had thousands and thousands, tens of thousands of grams flood the market, and no one thought it was good. And
how many repeat purchases do you get on that product?
Exactly. And it looks like the market is finally going to the point where, or it's at least here in Canada, it's kind of gone and leveled out with craft brewing, where people can kind of create their own limited brews, limited this. You can do that with flower. You can create your own small micros that have limited drops that either go right into the best quality flower you can get, or the best quality hashes, solventless hashes and stuff like that, right? Like, and it just goes from quality all the way through, and it's really cool to see like the Ghost Drops guys really going from getting quality growers all the way down to the quality flower and everything going through. Like, it's cool to see Aurora finally starting to buy into these companies that are already producing really good quality. I think they bought out Greybeard, or the company that owned Greybeard, and it's cool to see that they have San Rafael 71, which is all really, really quality stuff, right? I think that's what they're called. I think that's the brand. And and like
no doubt.
And you were just saying the term quality. Actually, that was one of my next questions. What does the term quality mean to you? And it's literally it's hard to say, because you've got paper in front of you, and then you've got you consuming it, and paper might say it's quality, and that's kind of what I go by. Is a lot of times it's the paper that shows me quality, and then I consume it, and I'm like, okay, did I like that? Did I not like about it? What did I like about it? What didn't I? This and that. And I kind of go from there to get my overall quality, and it's different in everybody too, right?
Right, for sure. So first up, which is, the things I'm about to say are my own personal opinion, and
exactly.
not everybody feels the same way, but so to that point, which is, I think a C of A speaks to many aspects of quality, right? Like, do I want my product to not have pesticides in it? Yeah, typically. Do I want it to be free of heavy metals? Yeah, I do. So that's a chunk of quality, I for sure.
Yeah.
And that some people may say the quality that's accounted for in the testing framework is maybe not the entire picture, which is a very fair thing to say. Like, numbers obviously help create the understanding of certain aspects of that product, but nowhere in testing does it say sponginess of my bud,
true.
Or does again, you can have a bud that's coming up with 4% terps, but for whatever reason, by the time the consumer opens that package up, it smells like hay, or whatever people
trash,
say, like, so it's
4% terps of hay is still 4%
important.
terps. Come on.
Yeah, exactly. 4% hay terp. Nice.
That's funny. That's
aileen.
Yeah, exactly.
So I mean, look, I think the C of A speaks to a big chunk of quality. I think at least majorly on the product safety side of things. Knowing that it's free of potentially harmful contaminants. That's I don't know anybody who would say, give me some more harmful contaminants in there.
Are you guys able to test what's left in the plant? So like, if we were to bring, or if a grower were to bring you a bud, and you could say there is this much nutrients left in the plant, Like it wasn't completely
Okay.
finished. Like some people believe that adding a whole bunch of water to your plant might remove those contaminant nutrients, like your extra
Sure.
nitrogen, your extra phosphorus.
Flushing.
Flushing, exactly, quote unquote flushing.
Yeah.
Can you do any flushing, quote unquote, tests?
So our lab's not really equipped to do like nutrient testing right now.
Okay.
So I guess there's two sides of that, right? Like you could do testing of the buds
Yeah.
for nutrient content, and a lot of people actually manage it or look at it from the soil level as well.
Okay.
So people are constantly kind of looking to understand the nutrient ratios
In
in
the
their
soils.
soils.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. Now, that's an interesting concept. Like, I don't even know if I know for sure there are other labs that are kind of specializing in like the agricultural side of things,
Yeah.
and definitely do soil testing for nutrients like potassium, all that kind of
But
stuff.
they don't usually directly would take, like, you wouldn't be able to say cut down a full plant and then just bring a plant to you
And
and
take the
more or less and
plant.
say,
Yeah, like
hey,
that's
take this plant. Can you tell me how much nitrogen is left in this plant? How much potassium,
right.
phosphorus? Is there a way? Do you think, and just like, is there any equipment you think that would be able to do that or anything, or is that just not something we have yet?
You can definitely do it. Like you could do the testing. I think it's just really a matter of kind of understanding the experiment, right? Like and
Okay.
just ensuring that you're tackling it the right way.
Yeah.
So, could you take a full plant, homogenize it down to, a way that we could then, put solvents on it, extract out what we want, and then potentially, measure that in an instrument? Theoretically, that part is a no-brainer. That's
Okay.
doable. I think it's just a matter of understanding, like, hey, if I want to understand, uh, you know, the nutrient levels within my plant at a
Mm-hmm.
certain point in its grow cycle, you should probably have a good understanding of what you expect it to be or what you want it to be
Mm-hmm.
so that you can take these numbers that come out of the analysis in the lab and compare it against something, right?
Okay.
So if
Yeah,
you
that
had a
makes
good
sense.
understanding of, the ideal amounts are, you can then take, analytics and compare the
Compare it.
results to, ideals and say, I'm lower on potassium than my ideal potassium level for this point in its growth cycle.
Okay. Very interesting.
We don't do a ton of that though.
Yeah.
That's
No.
just
No.
me
No.
kind
No.
of thinking off the top of my head.
No, and that's obviously it's cool because obviously I've never seen any type of lab equipment or I've never even been to a lab, so it's cool to just talk with someone who there might be a machine that we don't know of growers that has, right? Like we see these things every
Mm-hmm.
year come out where like, oh, you can test your THC by just taking a picture of it on your phone, and like we're like, nah, that
Yeah,
doesn't
right.
work,
Yeah.
right? Like, and then they're like,
Spectroscopy stuff.
yeah, exactly. And you're like, nah, that doesn't all work, right? So every year we're always trying to figure out where's the best way to get our stuff tested, what's the term quality mean, this and that. And what a lot of it seems to come down to for me is a lot of it is labs. Like I think like the only way to 100% know your definite quality in something is to consume it and to get it
Yeah,
tested, because you can consume it, say it's the
sure.
greatest, but if you test it and all of a
Totally.
sudden it says actually there's a lot of high metals in there, you're like, oh
Right.
shit, now
Yeah.
that's not good at all anymore, I don't want any of it, right?
100%. Yeah.
Right. And
Which is, the lab testing is not 100% of the quality picture, but without it, you definitely don't have a full picture of quality,
yeah,
in my
100%.
opinion.
Yeah,
And
totally.
again, not to say that, markets that have proliferated without lab testing were totally wrong and didn't know what quality
Yeah.
was, because they for sure did. And I'm sure if you took some of the best stuff being produced there, it would probably pass the test, and who knows?
Yeah, totally,
But
totally. Okay,
yeah, lab testing is definitely a great piece of the puzzle, I'd say.
I've got probably the most important question here so far.
Okay.
And this is going to be a really hard one, I think, for you. So if you need to walk away for a second, that's fine. If you need to stand up and walk away or anything like that, okay? So here's the question.
You got it.
Okay.
Hit me. I'm ready.
If you were forced to, would you rather put ketchup on a poutine or ketchup on spaghetti?
Oh, poutine in a heartbeat.
Why?
'Cause I already eat my fries with ketchup.
So you don't think the gravy and the ketchup together is a little weird?
I'm gonna hit you with a sad reality fact.
like drinking orange juice and with a little bit of toothpaste on it.
I sometimes put a little ketchup on my poutine.
My wife does too. That's why I have it as a question. And every time we get a poutine, we have to literally half it's got ketchup on and the other half is no ketchup, and I'm like, ugh. But
Yeah.
my family puts ketchup on their spaghetti, and I think that's really really weird because spaghetti is tomato sauce. Why would you want to put more tomato sauce on top of it? That's the whole point of it.
Yeah, like super salty, sweet
Yeah.
tomato, processed tomato. Yeah. Yeah, that one definitely I would avoid at pretty much all costs. I don't know about ketchup on spaghetti. That's
What about ketchup on craft dinner?
all day.
How about eggs?
I'm more of a Worcestershire guy.
Worcester, yeah, Worcester style, whatever, however you say that. That's good. Okay, interesting. Interesting. How about here's another one. I didn't have this one written down, but I thought this one would be interesting too. What's your opinion on canned potatoes?
And potatoes. Never really messed with them.
No, would you, if you saw canned potatoes on the shelf, would you say, I could probably create something with that?
I don't, I don't, I don't see myself doing it just because like potatoes are so readily available, and all you gotta do is peel them anyway. So
All right.
you don't even always have to peel them. So
All right, next question. Next question. We're gonna skip that one. Unbelievable. Indica versus sativa.
yeah, okay. I've
What's
definitely
your
given this
opinion?
spiel a few times. I'm kind of like in the middle on it, right? Like, there's some people who get all up in arms about it, and you know, ultimately, my highest level takeaway is that I don't believe that those terms have intrinsic value when actually describing cannabis products. I think the research shows pretty clearly at this point, if you run a bunch of genetics on stuff, that it's kind of a mixed bowl at this point
It's a
to really
salad bowl
say.
now.
Yeah, exactly. I think does it still serve? The problem is to me, which is I think consumers know that language. They use that language in their purchasing behaviors,
Hmm.
and the dispensaries and bud tenders are still working within that language to help make facilitate the sales process and do it in a way that's not like, hey, you shouldn't be using those words. And the person's
Hmm.
like, I just came to buy a pre-roll, man. Like
Yeah.
so
Yeah. Exactly. Exactly. Well, and the thing is
I'm not
dispensaries
saying
aren't even really allowed. Like the whole bud tending market is very, very limited on what they're allowed to even educate. They're not even really allowed
sure,
to push products. They're not even really allowed to give you kind of the
right,
benefits on why this one might be better
anything
than
on
this one.
effects.
Yeah, they're not allowed, and that's I think is very, very makes it hard for them. So that's the reason why I think Indica and Sativa are still staying. Like, oh, Indica gives you that couch locky, Sativa gives you that
Yeah,
energetic, because that's all the bud tenders can literally say is, oh, that's Sativa, that's Indica, that's
right.
hybrid, right? So I think that really
Yeah,
pushes it. But as any grower or anybody in the lab knows that everything's a hybrid now. Sativa, Indica, a lot of times sativas were considered more energetic because they were harvested earlier and they're a longer growing plant.
yep,
It's just more where they were grown in on the earth. Like some of them where they were in the zone, where how close they were to the
sure.
equator, right? Like it's yeah, no, I the whole indica sativa, I think we're on the same line
Yeah,
on
and I
that
think
one.
the like maybe the challenge is like consumers have this rough understanding of what it means, and bud tenders have a rough understanding of what products they have that would meet those descriptions. I think the
Hmm.
problem is like there's not enough evidence to say that if someone says I want an indica product, a bud tender gets them an indica product.
True.
What are they? Who's to say what they actually ended up getting? And
Gives them
I don't.
that
I just don't
indica
think.
feel they're looking for, right? Like they
Yeah,
think
and
is,
then
right?
at that point, is that person did they maybe actually hand them something that was sativa leaning? That person goes
True.
home, consumes it, and then tries to convince themselves that they're couch locked or something. Like it
Yeah.
seems like it's a bit of a confusing thing that doesn't lead to a better understanding at this point. So
No, I like that's a good. That was a good.
I'm
Yeah.
still waiting to see what the better version of it is, and I'm all open to those conversations, and I'm still trying to learn what would be a pragmatic replacement for it. And I don't know if there's been anything that's been simple enough, or that can easily replace it right now. So I don't. I don't know if tomorrow all of a sudden I'd say everybody stop and start doing it this way. So
True, true, true. No, I think it's starting to get to the point what we were talking about earlier about it's starting to get to the point where people are starting to realize the different terps, the different
yeah,
overall entourage effect, and it's not just those terms anymore, which is starting. It's nice to see, and a lot of people say it takes 5 years for the first stable line, that first kind of wall to finally get over, where cannabis starts to okay, it's legal. It's been 5 years. We finally got a business approach to it. And then the next 5 years is usually when the actual business plans start to level out and stabilize, and the companies start to come out saying, okay, these are the companies that are probably going to last, and these are the ones that are probably not going to. Right?
right,
That's kind of
yeah,
what's coming
and
out
it's
now.
been a bit of a been a bit chaotic in the Canadian cannabis
Yeah,
space.
totally,
Like
totally.
I think a lot of people are just trying to get their feet in the ground before they start thinking about how they can take the whole industry to a new level.
100%. Okay, I've got like 3 questions left here, and then I'll let you get on your day here. All
Cool.
right.
Yeah, sounds good.
Okay, okay, okay. Do you do any growing yourself?
No, not really.
No.
I'd love to. Unfortunately, in the living situation that I'm in right now, I don't really have the ability to. But hopefully that changes
All right.
soon enough.
And then you would join the Bud Lab to learn how to grow, right?
Yeah, of course, yeah. And I've got a lot of close friends who grow, so I do spend time at their place in the summer, and
Nice.
I've trimmed with them, and I all that. But I would be lying if I said I've actually personally grown plants from start to finish.
Awesome, awesome. Well, now that you're in the Bud Lab and you have that verified badge on here, everyone knows who you are. So, well, if you ever
Nice.
get down to the point where you post your pictures, we'll all be like, "Oh yeah, that's the guy who tests." Well, yeah,
Yeah, yeah, and
you
get
should only
criticized
have it.
away
Yeah,
because I'm sure.
you should only have quality. What the heck? What's going on here?
Yeah, how come this guy can't even grow? But hey, I'll be the first to admit, like I recognize that there's a whole, in the same way we've got a whole world of science that goes into what we do. There's a whole world of that goes
Oh,
into the growing side
100%.
as well.
100%. I didn't really talk about it, but I did want to about PM. Is PM something you
Okay.
see a lot of when you are testing? Is that something that is probably like the number one thing you guys see? Because it seems like it is very, very popular here in the home growing
Yeah.
industry.
So anybody who wants to pretend like PM's not a thing
Yeah.
is deluding themselves. PM is, very common, especially in, when you get into trying to scale things up into big rooms and all that. And uh, look, you need really good, expensive equipment and good systems in place to avoid that stuff in the best case scenario. Like I almost want to say most times, like that's something that you're dealing with like as an ongoing thing.
Hmm.
um, yeah, like PM is very. I think the issue is that it's got a bad reputation, right? So people don't want to highlight it or talk about it as if it's a normal thing.
Hmm. Hmm.
And there are certain growers who I have seen be kind of pretty open and public about it, and it's like it's refreshing, when someone's willing to talk about that kind of thing. Problem is I'll use this as an example. A picture of powdery mildewed grow room gets out into the news and someone says, look how gross this is, and I can't believe this producer has this in their facility. Like that doesn't really
Yeah.
work towards normalizing it. And again, I'm not trying to say, oh, like let's sell buds with PM on it and make that normal, but I think the more people try to pretend it's not there or nobody's ever had it or anything like that, it's like it is a very normal thing.
Hmm.
So now on the testing side of things, we don't actually perform a powdery mildew test per se, but that would be something that's caught in sort of the microbiology testing.
Okay.
So there's different tests that get kind of tackled on the micro side.
Okay.
Some are enumeration tests, some are presence absence tests, like hey, is this present or not, or is this one above a certain count basically in it, and PM's gonna trip some of the count tests for sure.
Okay. Yeah, that was
um
another thing too, because some tests, some places like I've toured a couple different farms here and there, and you would see PM on their outdoor plants or here and there, and a lot of times it's not the owner of the company harvesting. It's usually
sure.
someone that they've thrown an ad on Indeed, someone coming and helping them, right? And
Right,
my
right.
my thing is that if you don't know what it is, you're probably just chopping and putting it inside that bag or that bin, and it's going through the trimming, right? And
Right,
it's got
right.
to be going through a lot of flour And like what you said earlier in the interview with microbes and stuff, it's going to appear on that scale, and there's probably the scale where some might pass because it's below the scale, and some might go through. Because with extractions, it seems like I've seen people who just take bud with WPM on it, and they just extract it into bubble hash. And
Sure.
the WPM spores are smaller than the hash head, so they would actually go through the bag. The thing is that once it goes through the testing, it's never actually showing up on the testing. So there's somewhere in the hashing that it's being killed off. So either in the freeze drying, either in the freezers. I was
gonna say, it's probably a temperature related thing.
Exactly. So then you kind of got this thing of, okay, is people in the hash industry don't seem to care about it, but people in the flower industry, it's something that you could have the most dankest flower, and then all of a sudden you have this one speck, and like you said, you mention it to anybody that you have it, and it immediately makes that 100 kilos that you just grew and only 1 kilo had WPM, the 99 of it's now trash because everyone said, "Oh, you have WPM." Like I had it in my last garden. I harvested a week early because I just had it in the back plant. I have a poor airflow issue over there, and I said, well, I cut it down early because as soon as I see it, I'm like, I don't want it to spread anymore, right? So as soon as I see it, I cut it off, and then I just try to give it a couple days, and if I see it anywhere else, then I'm like, okay, it's still spreading, cut my plants down now. And that's kind of what happened to me about a week and a half ago with my plants. First time growing this runts, had PM on one back plant stuck in the back corner. But it's something that we all deal with, and like you said, it's no one talks about it. And as soon as I ask about it, the only people who want to talk about it are guys who have own labs. But any grower that I ask and say, hey, or extractor, hey, have you noticed? No, we don't want to talk about it. We don't know any information. We don't know about it. Like,
sure you don't.
And it's like, well, like, everyone starts to say bad rep with distillate with being hot dog water, and they say shatter's trash because people just blast moldy weed and stuff. But like, you can't be saying it with them and then also be doing it on the solventless side too. And I'm not saying all solventless guys do it, but I've 100% seen it. And then those guys are the same guys that usually might say, oh yeah, but blasting, it's all moldy, blah, blah, blah. It's like, yeah, but we're trying to not have mold at all, right? The thing is to have the best quality product, the cleanest quality product, so that the consumers like us have no doubt in our mind that what we're consuming is perfect, right? Or quote unquote perfect for what we want, right? Because everyone's different, right?
Yep. Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so now my last question I have before I'll let you go here is, what strain are you currently smoking?
Ooh, good question. I got a few on the go right now, but so on the medical side, my favorite grower right now is Gord Nichols at North 40 there.
North 40, okay.
So he's a Saskatchewan micro.
Okay.
And not only does he grow some of the most fantastic cannabis in Canada, in my opinion, he's got a few things going for him. He's got a really cool diversity of cannabis cultivars or strains that he, is regularly. I think he has done some, genetics procuring himself, and he's very on top of, trying to introduce unique products, I guess you could say. Grows fantastic cannabis, and he's also extremely transparent. So on the one of the reasons I'm kind of plugging him here, which is he's super transparent in the way he grows, and on the topic of PM, about a year and a half ago, he publicly announced that he was having an issue with PM, and in order to properly handle it, he shut down his entire facility for like 2 months and completely emptied it out, cleaned it all down by sacrificing his own ability to make money, and we all know how difficult it is to survive and succeed as a micro and everything. So he kind of publicly just said, like, I'm doing this, I'm shutting down for a couple months, I'm totally cleaning up. And he kind of just like was very public about the experience. He's like, I don't
we need more growers
want
like
to do this. Yeah, and he's just nonstop. Like, even I think today he posted the newest batch of hash that he was working on, and he basically came out and said, hey, this new hash we've been working on formulating, mixing, doing whatever we can on it. I just got my C of A's back and the numbers look good, but I'll be honest with you guys, I don't feel like I nailed the consistency and the texture on this product. So I'm actually not going to put it at the price point of our other hashes. I'm going to put it at a lower price point for you guys.
Wow, see, transparent on everything. If he doesn't like the quality, he's going to lower it to the point where he'll sell it off to make sure that it's selling at a good price.
And it's probably fantastic hash. It's just like maybe it doesn't go in his fingers the exact way he likes.
That's
so
a hasher
like
for you, though. They're all
totally.
They're all, same with TVL. They're all about. I'm looking at this stuff. I'm like, that's like quality. That's like the nicest looking hash. No, it doesn't have the nose I was looking for. And then I'd get something. I'm like, what are you talking about? This stuff's the best.
This looks amazing. yeah. So that's, in terms of, him, I really trust, what he's putting out and what he's saying and stuff. He's really built that trust with me as a patient and everything. I'd say on the rec side of things, I'll give you the Ghost Drops First Class Funk. That's been pretty good.
Yeah.
It's been a reliable go-to for me. It's, I gotta say, and I don't think I would have ever said this in my life, but here I am saying it, which is that product, it stinks so much that, like, sometimes when I'm smoking it outside of my house, I worry what my neighbors are thinking.
The First Class Funk, really?
I never thought I'd ever say that in my life, but, and I love that. I'm very for, funky, strong, gassy, whatever you want to call it. But that's the kind of stuff I got to take for a walk, man.
That's the stuff that's funny. That's funny. It's so Brooke, my wife, came up to me this last night. She goes, I have a whole bunch of my friends coming over in 2 weeks for a baby shower, this and that. Yeah. And she goes, can you turn off your flower room exhaust for the day? Because I have this new runts, and it's just danks the whole back deck, right? And I said, oh, don't worry, it's already cut down, and by the time in 2 weeks, I won't have anything in there, so it won't smell. But she was like, that's the stinkiest weed you've ever had. Like, you can smell it at the end of my driveway, and I've never had anything like that. And it's just so gassy.
Yeah,
it's crazy.
And don't get me wrong, I love it. Like, but I'm also just a very, I don't know, like, I don't like bugging other people and stuff. So.
Yeah, you don't want people staring at you or putting your eyes on you while you're trying to enjoy yourself, right? It makes it awkward when you're trying to sit there and relax, right?
Or I can totally relate, like, if someone's sitting in their backyard, like, next door or something with their family, or they've got their kids running around and stuff. Like, I just feel weird lighting up and just, I know that, like, 100-meter radius is just definitely stinking of this stuff.
Well, 100%. You're respected. You like to respect the people around you when you consume, and I respect that. I think that's makes sense. I think as consumers, if we respect the people around us, I think it just is another thing of ending that stigma behind cannabis. Make cannabis users always the guys who are, oh, sorry, I'll hold the door open for you. Oh, I'm so sorry. Like, and always pause and leave the other stuff to the drinkers and the tobacco smokers.
Yeah, no, for sure. And look, like, I have every right to do it.
Exactly.
Do it as loud as I want, but, it's just a
100%.
two-way street, I guess.
100%. Well, thank you for joining us today. And I know I learned a ton. I know the chat learned a ton. I'm going to be saving this video and probably rewatching it and relearning a ton. But, I truly appreciate you coming on here, talking with us, joining our family for the day. Now that you are part of it, you can see everyone else who is here. Sorry. And what I've been doing the last 4 years is literally trying to link industry with the community, aka the consumers, to try and release the correct information and try and learn from things that make sense and not so much of the stuff that we read online, which is a lot of it was posted so many years ago, and it's now just coming out now because people are searching it. The SEO is coming out now, right? It's nice to learn from people who are hands-on in the industry every day. And I appreciate you for actually wanting to listen to me ramble for a little bit.
Oh, hey, this has been a lot of fun. I appreciate it. Now that I'm a part of the community here, keep your eyes open. I'll be checking in regularly.
Awesome. Guys, can we get some cheers? Can we get some love in the chat? Thank you for coming on. I don't know if you do have an account in the Twitch. On that little chat there, are you able to say hi there?
You know what? I went to do it and it wants me to sign up for an account and everything. So
It does. Okay.
I tried earlier, but I was gonna try to do it on the fly there, but then I was getting too distracted.
That's fine.
I forgot what I was talking about. So
But I appreciate that. Sorry it went a little long, but I appreciate all the new.
hey, no, this has been awesome. It's always great to even just kind of hash out my own opinions on things. You know, like I always.
That's what's nice about live too, because when you first start doing a live stream, you kind of feel like, oh, maybe like my opinions are kind of like out and about. Like maybe I kind of think weird, right? And then you start a live stream and you start to talk about the way you think, the way you want to live, and there's other people around who think exactly like you. And when you're in a room of people who are like-minded, passionate on the same things, it's always going forward. There's no one trying to pull you out the door. There's everyone trying to push you to the next door, right? And that's what's awesome about TBL.
Yeah, it's just this is the kind of stuff I like to talk about. So
awesome. Well,
I'm in the right place.
Well, have a great rest of your Thursday. Thank you for chilling. Thank you for sharing.
Thanks a lot. Another shout out on the rec products too. Pinners, best PRs in the game for sure.
Pinners. All right.
Later,
man.
See you guys. Thanks for having me.